Johnny.
Oh my goodness, Lachlan. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm stoked. How are you?
I'm so good. It's always good to see your shining face.
Man, I love your enthusiasm and your energy. And it was one of the things that I was going to kick the potty off with. But
yeah,
we had a little segue before and I had to just pause you for a second because I thought it'd be a great way to kick off the episode. For those who are tuning in, we got Jon Butterworth on the show. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll check out. He's very smiley and big waves coming at you. But we connected your drumming for Shepherd. And dude, we've spent a lot of time on the road now. It's been awesome fun. And you are the most infectiously positive individual I've ever met.
Thank you.
But one of the challenges with tour life is it's chaos. And we haven't had probably because we're you're never wrecked, but I'm always pretty wrecked. So to like sit down and properly connect. So I feel like this is going to be a great opportunity to do that over the next hour or so, which would be fun.
Agreed.
But dude, we're talking about posture. You were moving around the microphone. You were getting it set up, and then you're like, dude, I've just become so obsessed with my posture.
Yeah.
Give me the story.
Okay, so I feel like I struggle with my posture, as I think we all do. And it's actually, this is a quick little side story, but my wife has been going to a chiropractor for her back and everything, and I'm just learning that all of our spines are terrible, and like what we're doing with looking at our phones and looking down all the time, and like, you know, not walking with our shoulders back, and it's just like terrible for your back and your spine, and we're like losing curvature in our neck, and that's like horrible. So I'm trying to get better with, I like sleep on a roll now, like a Tootsie Roll
really?
thing. Yeah.
Dude.
And my wife is way better at it than I am. I'll go to sleep on it, like on my back, and I'll wake up like without remembering taking a pillow, but I'll wake up with like a pillow.
So you use a Tootsie Roll instead of a pillow?
Yeah. Because you're supposed to, they say that it like helps the curvature of your neck, like regain it, because we're all like starting to get humps. And
because, like you see the people with the hump on the back of their neck.
Yeah.
And then I always think about it because obviously when you're on a phone, you're looking down.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you have your head on a pillow, it's the same
thing.
It's pressing your head forward.
Right.
I was literally chatting with Kathleen the other day because I was talking about posture, and I was like, I know we're in a massage chair, and I was like, I wonder if you could just sleep like this. Like it just feels like normal because it has your body in the position it's supposed to be in.
Right.
Whereas a bed, it's like, you know, Amy will throw a leg on me, or like I'll have a pillow between my legs, and it's like you're in a weird position for 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
Fascinating.
And elongated.
I need to get a Tootsie Roll, dude.
It's crazy. So, and like, it's just amazing because they've done so many studies that talk about when you like, when you lose the curvature of your neck, you are compressing discs and it like cuts off nerves to different organs and different parts of your body, and that's why we get illness, and that's why we get like disease, which is insane.
We're literally our own worst enemies. It's like through chasing comfort, man, we're like killing ourselves in a slow death.
But so the funny part was when I first moved to California, because I'm from Maine originally.
Up like, for people who don't know, probably the most northern point of America, right?
I think so. I mean, Maine. I think it's higher than
Michigan, is it?
In Oregon and like Seattle and all that.
Yeah, let's just say yes for the story.
But it's essentially Canada. Like I'm essentially from Canada, but maybe that's why I'm so nice. So I from there went to school in Boston, Massachusetts, and then lived there for like 10 years, and then lived in LA for 5 years before moving to Nashville. And my first year in California, I worked at a drum company called DW. And it was my one and only like desk job. And I remember sitting at a desk for, 8 hours a day kind of thing. And I was slouching. And I was like, it's starting to feel in my back and all that. And I was like, I know I'm not supposed to, but I can't help it. And so what I did was, I went to the warehouse where all the drums were being made, and I grabbed a drum stool And I use that instead of a desk chair because I just instinctually sit up straight on a drum stool because I've been playing for so long. I know that's what you do on a drum seat is you sit upright.
Great posture.
So I have horrible posture everywhere else but when I sit on a drum throne.
Dude,
Isn't that hilarious?
I should take the back off that chair just to make sure. It's probably true, right? Like I know a lot of workplaces are actually that's a lie. I don't know they are, but I have seen research around sitting on Bosu balls, like those round gym balls.
Sure.
For that same reason, you have to engage your core, sit up tall.
Yeah.
If you slouch, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so there's probably a method to that. And I think even there's the introduction of the standing desks now.
Right.
So if you're sitting and your back's starting to get sore, it's probably a good indicator to get up and stand up and walk around, right? Rather than just going, I need to push through this and hurt my back and my hips.
Well, and our bodies tell us so many things, right? And we should listen, and I don't. Like my wife is so good at, she'll wake up every day and do like a mental check and is like, ooh, like my neck feels weird, or like, oh man, like I must have slept my arm wrong because it, whatever. And she does that pretty much every day. And in my mind, I'm like, I mean, yeah, my back has hurt for like 7 years, but like
that's life, man. Life. That's aging. It's true. But it's challenging that narrative. I'm very similar where I used to just punish myself, whether it was on the booze, on partying, and same with fitness as well. Like I just punished myself. And I remember when I got to 27, roughly, I was doing hardcore training and I was just sore all the time and I was losing mobility. I'm like, man, I need to start training. And my best buddy, Bradley, he's 3 years younger than me, and he would get to the gym at the same time. He would just start ripping in and I'd be doing a 20, 30-minute warm-up and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, bro, the body doesn't move how it once did. And now he's like, obviously he hit that age as well and he's like, I get it. I like have to take preparation. But what that then taught me for all areas of life is like, okay, well, if I now need to slow down, we're speaking about it on the balcony, slow down to speed up to perform better or get better output.
Right.
Reflection or doing a body check is exactly that. It's like,
wow,
how does my body feel? How does my mind feel? How excited am I about the day ahead or the week ahead? And if you're getting answers that aren't that great, maybe we want to start looking at how can we improve things. Like that's how you, because one thing you said, dude, in one of your interviews, and let's just segue here because we will come back to your story, but this is on.
Yeah.
I read it on your article with the Nashville Voyager.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You said we always have something to accomplish, something to celebrate and be thankful for, and something to learn. Can we unpack that, man? Like,
absolutely, yes.
That I feel like ties into what we were just talking about.
Oh my gosh. And actually, this is another really good segue. I had a really interesting awakening when I moved to Nashville. So I always tell people the addiction that I'll never get over and that I have to like, and I mean, never say never, right? But like,
honest,
right? The addiction that if it's left unchecked, I think I will always fall back into is addiction to work. And I love working. I find a lot of purpose in it. And I remember one time when I was in LA, I was talking to a buddy because I had done 2 gigs already that day, and I was at my 3rd, and then I was headed to a 4th. They weren't glamorous either. It was like I played at a theme park. I did like a jazz cocktail thing for a corporate event, and then I played in this like company battle of the bands, and a buddy of mine hired me for it. And then I was headed to go host karaoke, right? So like nothing like I'm not playing for Ed Sheeran or Shepherd or like anyone crazy. But I was leaving my buddy who was just kind of hanging out. He was done for the night and he's playing guitar. And I told him I was leaving to go do something else. And he goes, okay, so when is it ever enough? Like when can you say at the end of the day, like I've put in a good day's work? And at that time, my answer was like, never. I would continue to work and regardless, talking about our bodies, regardless if it was killing me or not, right? Because I was like heavily, I was waking up by drinking coffee and I was loosening up with booze. So it's like, and then
perfect concoction.
Sprinkling water in there every now and again when like the room spun because I was so dehydrated. Right?
As we take
sips of coffee. This is very good coffee, by the way.
Thank you, man. Plunges at its finest.
But so when I moved to Nashville, I got it was really fascinating. But I mean, I moved here for my wife, and she's lived here for 13 years. But I moved here, and I'd gotten an offer to play for a country band. And I've never been like a huge country fan.
Get out.
Yeah. My wife. But meaning, and it all stems from comfortability, right? And like, I didn't grow up listening to country music. So stepping in on a gig and playing covers, people would be like, oh, you know this song from Merle Haggard? And I'd be like, I don't. Like, I've never heard this. I can play for you Earth, Wind and Fire's catalog or, like Tom Petty.
Yeah,
exactly. But like, so it came from just like a place of frustration for me, just because it didn't come easy to me. But so I'm playing for this country artist, and I'll always be grateful for him because he got me to Nashville, essentially. Like, it was a salaried touring job. We were playing covers, essentially, like all across America in like Joe's Bar and Grill and whatever, But it was 50 weeks a year. We were out Wednesday to Sunday and then back. So it was crazy. My problem was I didn't like the music I didn't like the music that we were playing.
Yep.
And it was hard because I would listen to a song that I had to learn, like a cover, whatever. And I could barely get through the song because I just didn't like it. And so it was on me that I didn't put the work in to just learn it no matter what, because it was my job.
But there's something to that, right? Like, I feel like music as well as subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's what I was saying to George the other day. It's like they put their heart and soul into this album, and then the charts just turn it into a competition. It's not like
100%.
Sport where there's one specific outcome.
100%.
Whereas music's so subjective.
Yep.
And I guess even for you, like, if you don't like country music, you don't like country music, which is fine. So, but then pushing yourself to try and learn something you don't like is probably like school for most people. Like,
right.
Yeah. And you don't do well.
Well, so what happened was I found myself playing on Broadway when we were in town, and I remember one specific night I was just playing, wasn't having a good time, was probably, sipping on a whiskey because I was dysfunctional and and avoiding my problems. And I remember looking around and the people playing after us, the people playing before us, realizing how many amazing musicians are in this town. Like drummers who will play circles around me. And what I was doing was essentially their dream. Like I was making a living playing country music, and there are so many musicians who move here to be country musicians. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm stealing someone's dream for something that I hate. And I thought about if someone were to take my dream gig, like, or something that I loved, pop music, running Ableton is like my thing. That's where I thrive. And if I knew of someone who had a gig like that and they hated it, I'd be like, well, dude, just stop then so I can do it.
Yeah, give me the job.
Right. So what was I doing? I was stealing someone else's dream and blessing and what they've been praying for and whatever you believe. Like, I was taking that from them. So for me to step down and say, I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm only going to play music I like, opens up the universe, the world, for other people's dreams. And then it opens me up for my dream too.
It's pretty ballsy. Oh, you just sort of answered the question I was going to ask. Like, it definitely opens you up. It's very tough in the moment when it's your livelihood, right? Like,
Yep.
You and Britt were together then, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. So it's like you
just engaged, actually.
Oh man, so like the pressure, right, of thinking about family and wanting to be able to travel and pay for a wedding and do all these sorts of things then falls on top of it, and that can be a reason why people don't make the change, even though they know they should.
Right.
So what was it that you feel really pushed you to step back? I know, because once again, to the point of people know that if we stop doing, and we were talking about this before, it's like, for me even, less is more when you can do it better. So stepping back to go, okay, I'm going to take a hit financially.
Right.
I may not get a gig for X amount of time. Like, nothing's guaranteed. Just because I step down doesn't mean my dream job's going to fall in my hand.
It's not right there.
Yeah, it's
right?
not like hanging there.
Right.
And you've now got the added responsibilities that you know come with marriage and all of that sort of stuff. What sort of guided you through that?
I think one thing that my wife has always said, and I really love, is she said to me, she goes, I want you to realize your dreams. If you want to tour, if you like want to do these things, I'm going to miss you, but that's awesome. She goes, the second that you take a gig that you don't like and then you're gone because you're playing that gig that you don't like, then we have a problem, because then you're gone and you're not even happy about it, right? So she was like, at that point, I'd rather you just get a job doing something else.
Wow.
And that really, really, really stuck with me. I was also very floored by kind of the general mindset in Nashville, which I haven't really seen anywhere else, which is people kind of respect the hustle of like, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was in LA, the question that people would ask to fish to see if you were good enough to play for them would be, do you play music full time? And the answer was, if it was yes, that meant that you were like, great, and we'll hire you, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you said no and you had a side hustle, if you were a barista or worked at a drum company like I did,
yeah.
I watched people's interest fade. And it was the idea that like, oh, then you're probably not good enough. If you're not good enough to play music full time and pay your bills doing it, then you're probably not good enough. So I'm just not going to hire you.
It's so interesting with that vetting process, like the amount, because at some point, someone new to town has to, like, to survive, you have to have something else. Unless you've got like trust fund money or something else behind you, or you've saved up a bucket load.
Right.
But you have to have something behind you to do that. So I can't imagine the amount of incredibly, like, this town is full of talented musicians that are getting overlooked because it's like, oh yeah, I'm still working at a barista, but I still drum 10 hours a day.
Right.
Like,
well, so that the interesting part about that was I saw a lot of my new acquaintances, like new friends, who played for like pretty big artists. And when they were in town, they were working at a barista parlor, or they were, you know, doing construction or building furniture or whatever. And it was it was the realization that everyone needs a job. And like, if you don't wrap up your identity in what you do, it makes it a lot easier to provide. And I remember one night, I had done that. I'd taken a step back from country music, and, you know, funds were running a little low.
I was stressing,
you
man.
know, and because I learned that I was moving to Nashville a month before I moved, which is crazy. It was a quick turnaround. I remember talking to my wife, and she was like, well, I mean, you know, gigs are a little slow. They will pick up. She was like, but they're a little slow. You should go like get a job, like figure out something you enjoy and do that in the meantime. And I was like, no, I mean, like, music will pick up. Don't worry. And she was like, no, like, you should be looking into like getting a job. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. Like, music's going to pick up. Like, people will start calling. And she was like, no, really, go get a job. And so I did. And I worked at a boot company in the Gulch over here for about 6 months before COVID shut it down. And isn't that crazy though? But
what do you feel your resistance to it was? Was it the belief that you thought the next job was around the corner, or was it that you felt it was not aligned with where you wanted to go and who you wanted to be?
It was my pride for sure. It was for my entire life. I've started playing drums when I was 2. So my entire life has been, I'm Jon the drummer. And it really isn't until the past 4 years that I've started unraveling that of like, even if I never played drums again, I'm still Jon.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be joyful, and I'm still going to be happy to be here, because we're not boiled down to like what we do.
It's an extension.
Exactly. It's an extension of, and in that, when you find what you love to do, it's because it awakens something in you. And it's like, you can use your purpose in life, what your soul loves doing. Yeah. You can use the jobs that you decide you love to do to change the world and change people's lives.
It really pulls the best out of you too, right? Like, I think that's
does.
why we do have such an attachment. It was like me with rugby, or even me with business, and you with drums. It excites you, and you know what is possible, and you're so committed to achieving it, which then puts you in a position when problems arise, you're willing to do whatever it takes. When tough conversations need to be had, or when you need to acknowledge, like parts of the story you were saying, I was like, it's ticking all the boxes, right? To step down and not do something that may be in the ballpark of what you love doing, but pivoting to what's more fulfilling from the country music and stepping back, like that takes balls, and a lot of people wouldn't do that. But because you knew you wanted to drum, you knew authentically like the kind of music that you like, you stood back to be able to do that, which is probably going to making you a better drummer and musician and everything, and then it pulls everything else forward, right? It's easier to be happy when things are going well. Like you can make time for more things when I guess you hit a flow state, right? When you figure out that, for me, it's like podcast, like it's easy.
Yeah.
I don't prep. I do prep, but not too much, because I'm just genuinely curious and I love learning. But if it's other things, it's like pushing shit uphill. I'm like, I probably don't need to do that. You know what I mean? So
I think, anything that I'll share this. So there was a time in my life that I watched, it's embarrassing. I watched this Bob Marley documentary called Marley.
Is it the new one?
It was, I saw this probably back in 2013.
Okay, so it's not the one that was at the cinema like 6 months ago or whatever.
I don't think so.
No.
Because that was like newly made.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but this one, it was amazing. It blew my mind, and like just to see what he did for people and how he cared and how he just sat with people, which is something that I really try hard to do. Because I'm a pretty energetic person, and I find like sometimes I get a little too puppy doggy. And I get like whipped up and like, and then I'm like, wait, how did I get here? Like, where's my wife? I think I lost her like 10 minutes ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what did I just say? But he had an ability to just bring people together. And I loved it. And I loved one of his philosophies, which is a Rastafarian philosophy, is the idea that, and I'm probably butchering this, but it was the idea that, only you can get yourself out of your circumstances. And like, it's the whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing. And if you're unhappy, then do something about it, right? Because that's all we can do. It's so easy to take the victim mentality of like, well, this is the cards I've been dealt, or, oh, well, I have to be doing this because how else am I going to make money, or whatever, or I was born into this, or whatever. It's like, no, we can do something about that if we're unhappy. And the end of that story was, I was like, oh, maybe I should become a practicing Rastafarian. Like, that's pretty cool. And then I'm like looking into the requirements, and one was like, this is back in my early 20s. I was very much enjoying the booze. And one of them was like, booze is the way that the white man keeps people down because like, you know, they're like submissive.
Yeah.
So like you can't drink booze, and like smoking a ton of weed like enlightens you. And I was like, okay, I don't.
So substitute the booze for the joint. Nice.
And I was like, I don't know about that, but okay, I'll keep reading.
Science.
And then another one was that the white man is the devil, and I was like, I don't think I can get behind this.
Yeah, that's something that maybe not.
I feel like, but that, and I know that religion is beautiful, and I'm just joking around, but that principle really stuck with me. That like, if you're not happy, you can do something about this.
Well, I think all religions or ways of life, any individual can take pros from and also cons from. And
Sure.
I think what makes us completely unique is deciding which ones we want to take, and obviously thinking about, is this going to impact my life?
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke about this, like obviously a lot of the Americans that I am now buddies with and have had on the show talk a lot about religion. And for me personally, and we spoke about this in the car.
Bible Belt, right?
Yeah. And it's like something that's so foreign to me. Haven't grown up with religion. It's not something that I practice. However, I've mentioned like I watch preachers on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
The reason being is I wanted to get better at public speaking, and preachers are pretty good at that.
Oh, they're awesome.
So I watch like their mannerisms, how they hook people with what they say, how they raise the room and the energy and make people feel valued. And
yeah.
So for me, that element of religion is valuable to me.
Yeah.
It's not changing the fact that, you know, I don't have a Bible or I don't do any of that sort of
Right.
thing, but that to me is valuable, and a lot of the messaging I can get behind. And I think we spoke about it in the car. I've definitely spoken about it. There's a lot of principles that are black or white. And because of that, I like, personally as an individual, I like certainty, because it's like,
Yes.
if I do this, this is that. If I do this, that outcome happens.
100%.
And it just makes it easier for me to live my life.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of grey areas with things, and I feel that's where it's confusing, and I feel the world at the moment is experiencing a lot of grey areas, hence the amount of chaos and
Right.
people at each other's throats, which isn't peace, because I think at the end of the day, we all want to live a good life, and our idea of that may vary, but we want the same thing, right? We want peace, happiness, love. So I guess to swing it back around, it's like there's definitely things that people can take from religions regardless of what it is. And there's things that maybe you disagree with it, but it doesn't mean you need to belittle someone's belief or opinion unless they're physically hurting people.
Then there's a problem.
Then there's a fucking problem.
Well, and I heard this one time from a pastor and a preacher, and I loved it. They said, people just want to feel valued.
Yeah.
And there's a Christian principle that is it's love your neighbor like you love yourself, and that's a lot harder to do than sounds, right? First of all, a lot of people, and I've been there too. A lot of people don't love themselves.
I was gonna touch on that, but yeah.
We're flow state right now, right?
Like, people, I can do that because I hate myself, so it's easy to hate people, you know.
But it's something that I'm working on right now, actually. And I'll always be working on it. I don't think it's ever possible to not. But like when they say your neighbor, it doesn't mean like, you know, your brother-in-law or your sister-in-law, right? Like it's not your physical neighbors or Bernadette or whatever. It's everybody. And so when someone is flipping you off because you cut them off in traffic, or whether someone's, you know, yelling at you because you're in the bike path in New York and, you know, whatever, loving them. And the thing that I'm working on right now is getting to the point where if someone is aggressive towards me or says something that I don't like, and I get that like pit in my stomach, that fight or flight kind of
rage.
Instead of feeling that, going straight to oh, what are they going through right now that they're responding like this?
Mm.
You know, and it's because, I mean, I don't think anyone has ever gotten saved. I mean, I guess never say never, but like, I don't know if anyone's ever gotten saved because they were walking through Vegas and there was a dude on a soapbox screaming at them saying that they're going to hell. That's not helpful.
No,
Like,
hasn't convinced me yet.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, it happened to my wife one time, and she's been a Christian her whole life. And there was someone from the Westboro Baptist or whatever, yelling at her, saying that she was a sinner and she was going to hell. And she was like, "You don't even know me. Like, what are you talking about?" Like, you know. But so it's we can do so much harm by assuming, right? And instead, we should be asking questions.
It's going back to developing those things, like not being a victim. And do you know what I just realized? I hadn't turned the lights on.
Oh man!
I was looking at it and I was like, "That looks."
Are we dark? Are we
Yeah,
very?
we
looking
I
extra
still
tan?
checked. You look good.
Okay.
I'm probably a bit dark, but that's.
Do you want me to turn the light on?
Yeah, I might pull that one out
I
too.
got you.
We'll have a quick intermission.
1 or 2.
2, I think it is. One of them works.
This is nice. I feel like I'm. How did that feel?
Hurt my toes a little bit.
Oh,
That's all right.
your piggies.
Yeah. Just bang. Anyway, we're back with new lights.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube, you're most welcome. I was sitting there and I was like, why is it so dark? And then I was staring at the light for about 5 minutes before it registered that it wasn't on.
Awesome.
Crazy.
Awesome.
But back to where we were
Yes.
before we took an ad break. No, took a light break. The idea of not being a victim, it's very easy to be a victim and it's very easy to blame others. Well, that's essentially what being a victim is, right?
Right.
So how do we get better at seeking to understand what people are going through? And most people, I know from my experience, I've read multiple books on it and it's something I aim to improve on, but I always find myself where I'll be judging people or criticizing people.
Sure, same.
And I'm aware of that. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you know what you're doing.
Right.
Like, and it's not helpful to anyone, but
Right.
and you're not putting your feet in their shoes.
Right.
Like, to understand. And I think it has to be a practice. Like, if you want to get really good at it, it's once again, I think why reflection is so good, because you can actually think about it. It's like a question that if it's something that you are terrible at and you want to get better, meaning you want to take responsibility and not being at the effect of how other people treat you or even how other people live.
Yeah.
Start with a question. It's like, how have I been treating people lately? Or how have I let other people make me feel lately? Because how you choose to feel by other people is completely your responsibility. Because when people go, oh, they made me feel sad or they made me feel inferior, it's like, take back control.
That's so
and
good.
So I think going back to how do we overcome this victim mentality is everyone's problems are unique. Everyone's going through different things. Cool.
Yep.
Tick. What can you do? What do you need to understand? What can you practice that is going to help you become better? And with it, I guess also letting go of the fact that we're never going to be perfect either. So don't strive for perfection.
Right.
Just be better.
There just be better. Well,
simple.
One of my favorite things, and it was actually really cool because I got to see this guy when we were in New York. But I had an old musical director for the first wedding band I ever played in Boston.
That's awesome.
Which was pretty cool. And he told me, he would always say, I'll never get mad if you make a mistake, but if you make the same mistake twice, then I start getting upset. And I love that because we learn so much more in the proverbial valleys than we do the peaks, right? Like when everything is going awesome, it's hard to be like, to learn anything. But when we're getting, our butts handed to us left and right, or you can't do this right, or you feel like you're failing here, you learn so much because you have to stay afloat.
Well, some people don't though as well. Like I think when people,
right?
Because I agree with your point 100%, but I also know so many people who are wallowing in the mud,
right? Yep.
And they don't want to be there, but they're really struggling to. Let's just say they've got mud in their eyes and they can't see properly.
Nice.
Because I remember when I hit rock bottom, and people experience this, and everyone goes through it, and everyone's like, what's that rock bottom moment where you feel like it couldn't get any worse? And the chances are it can get fucking worse.
It can always, well, because you could die.
Literally.
Right? Yeah.
So are you prepared to use this painful moment as the, I guess, double bounce off a trampoline to get you out of there? Because my rock bottom moment, I wouldn't say was the dead set worst, but I'd had about 15 wake up calls prior that I'd just chosen not to do anything different about.
Right.
And so when we're sitting down in that position, we can stay there. And that's the unfortunate thing. So it's then looking at what could be that thing to get myself out of it. And that's where, I guess what we were talking about on the balcony, or the how do you call that? A patio? Balcony?
I think balcony is good because we're raised.
There's so many different things around here. That
if we're on the floor, I feel like it wouldn't be a balcony.
Yeah,
but
right. Done. Perfect.
Patio.
Just so people can visualize it.
So they know where we are.
But from that point, like, everyone can find themselves in a sticky situation, right? And it's all relative. So the current sticky situation that I've found myself in, which I'm documenting the way out, and we briefly spoke about it, a lot of my revenue comes from working with people one-on-one, and then I also have an academy. So it's a do it with you program or a done for you with those businesses, right?
Okay.
So it's great money, awesome, but very hands-on. When we were on the road touring,
Right.
there was so many spots and times where we didn't have Wi-Fi, which meant I had to push calls, or the the chaos of the scheduling. It's like we're setting up stages, packing it down, so I'd be overwhelmed. I hadn't prepped for calls, etc. So it was a shit show essentially.
Man.
And rather than going, oh man, I just have to give this up, or I have to not go on tour, which is what I did, a decade ago with Amy. I've committed to wanting to experience this while I'm here. So pivoting to going, okay, well, the biggest problem I have is the uncertainty around routine because of the touring. The problem as a result of that is it's not delivering a great customer or client experience, which is going to lose me business and damage my reputation.
Right.
Which means no money.
Right. Right.
So in order to solve that problem, it's like, what's the goal? The goal is to be able to earn money, deliver a great result outcome, customer experience, but do it in a way where I don't need to be there now, because there's too many variables.
Right.
And so people can relate to that, I hope, through the fact that we have an idea of where we want to be. We know what we need to do in order to deliver that, and we just need to work out what the specific method or vehicle is to achieve that based on our lifestyle.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're someone listening to this, and whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter, and you're the breadwinner.
Sure.
And you want to be there for your family emotionally and actually be there, not just financially.
Right.
But some of the trade-offs that you're experiencing is you're having to work long hours, you're having to go to work meetings, and you're missing out on sports carnivals, you're missing out on the date nights, and that's eating you up.
Right.
What are you going to do? Do you sit there and go, oh, that's my reality, that sucks, I'm going to watch divorce come upon me, I'm going to watch my children grow up and be resentful that I'm the one at work?
Right.
Or you're going to do something about it, and that then starts with going, what is not working? Wow. Like,
yes.
Can I learn to be more efficient in my workday? I've got 8 hours. Do I need to do long lunches? Do I need to, how many things on my book don't actually need to be done? And like, how do I become more efficient, more focused, more productive so that I can get out of work at 5 when I said I would?
Wow.
And that is a different example of my own story, where it's like, I know what I want to achieve. I know how I need to achieve it. And I know the problems that are holding me back. So here's what I've now created. And it's not fun having to pivot. However, it's moving me closer to where I want to get to.
Right.
Did that make sense?
Dude, 1,000,000%. And I have so much respect for that because if left unchecked, I am a avoider to a T. And if anyone listening does the Enneagram thing, I'm also a 9, which is like the peacemaker, and I just want everyone to be happy. And the juxtaposition that comes with that is, if I'm doing something and it's not working, I'll just avoid thinking about it because it's scary. So I just work harder, but then that doesn't make anyone happy because now I'm doing a crappy job at everything because I'm stretching myself too thin. And then no one's happy with me.
Yep.
I'm not happy with me. And usually that comes to a head with like a breakdown kind of thing. So I'm learning to be more like you essentially, and face our problems head on, because they can only get worse if we don't look at them, right? Like if you were just like, fine, I'm just gonna continue on this path because it's been working, and I'm gonna, push calls back and not be prepared, and then you're gonna have your family and everyone on the road upset because they're like, oh, where did Lockie go? And then you can have people on the calls being like, dude, you said you were going to be on 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
And it's like, no one's happy. And so good for you for.
But it's that less is more when done better. So
yes.
In the beginning, what we lack in skill and understanding and efficiency or systemization, we make up for in time.
Right.
However, if we always just use time and don't develop systems, routines, habits, boundaries, we're going to continue getting more of the same with less of the things that are important to us. And for me, it's like I look at the buckets of my life, or even the values that I have, which is family, connection, health, adventure, and freedom. And every decision that I make has to tick those boxes.
Wow.
And it makes it very easy for me to make decisions, because if it's a no, why would I do it? Because I'm only going to find myself upset at some point.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
And a lot of people aren't thinking about that with their decision making. So they're always looking outside themselves for that. And I did that. Dude, I'm still guilty. Once again, I'm not perfect with this. Like,
but you have the template though.
Correct. I know. So when I'm feeling unfulfilled or life's not going to plan, it's like generally something's missing. And to be completely honest, the thing that always goes most out of all of them is adventure. Because it's like, much to your point, I love working and I love growing and I love progress.
Yeah.
But growth and progress still comes through adventure. I just forget that because it's not like on my balance sheet,
Right.
And for people to be able to start thinking about that, it's going, okay, well, what do I really value? Where can I put my time to do that? And can I accept in the beginning that I will have to devote a fair bit of time to get this thing off the ground, whatever it is, whether it's a new business, whether it's a new it's why the honeymoon phase happens in a relationship,
right.
or move into a new town. Like when you move to Nashville, it's like you've got to get in and amongst the community to find out where you're going to fit in and find the opportunity.
Right.
But over time, you build the network, you build the things that allow you to step back and then go, okay, I need to give time to my wife now.
Right.
I need to give time to my health in order to be able to make consistent progress.
I heard something one time and I loved this. The person said, as time goes on, we forget the past. Like we forget things in our past, right? We can't foresee the future, and we often can't make sense of the present. And so something that I really, this is kind of fun. Have you ever seen the movie I Love You, Man?
I have.
With Jason Segel and Paul Rudd. He said something that I absolutely loved. He goes, trying is doing with the intention to fail.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, that is
movie wisdoms. So I always, the reason I hesitated.
Can you repeat that again?
Trying is doing with the intention to fail. So the reason why I paused just now was I was saying I'm trying to do this, but like, no, I am doing it. I am making an active, I am in the process of forming the habit and the discipline to do this. But just realizing that we have something awesome with every day. And I personally don't believe in coincidences or luck. I think that everything happens for a reason. And I think that we are here. I am here talking with you right now for a very specific reason. And this couldn't have not happened, right? And that breeds a lot of gratitude for me and a lot of excitement because I don't know if we've ever talked about the whole like shepherd story, maybe that's for another podcast.
No, let's do it now.
Okay, really quick.
Let's
It'll be super
Man,
quick.
you can take your time. I'm keen to hear.
Okay, cool.
Because I guarantee there's people there who are like, what's the story?
What is the story? Tune in next week.
Yeah.
Next week's episode is $50.
Yeah. It's a subscription only episode.
just this one. No, so essentially, I met George through kind of like a Facebook group, like a Craigslist, but for musicians. It's called Yep. It's Young Entrepreneurial Professionals.
Sweet.
For Nashville. And so people will go on there and post like, I need a photographer for this shoot tomorrow or whatever. Or I need a guitar player.
I need to get in that.
It's pretty awesome. I'll invite you to the group.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
And it's cool because you can provide you can reach out and be like, hey, if anyone needs, a trainer or whatever. And if anyone wants to come on my podcast, that kind of thing. And so I just saw this thing pop up, and it said, we're an Australian pop band, just moved to Nashville. We need a drummer who can run tracks and a guitar player. And I was like, oh man, I do those things. Not the guitar thing, but the drumming. I was like, so I just, kind of typed it out, sent it off. Didn't think much of it. And then a couple days later, George got back to me and was like, hey, he goes, we would like to we found a drummer for the showcase that we're doing. But we would like to have like 3 drummers like in the stable in Nashville for, in the wings. Would you be willing? And I was like, yeah, that would be great. Sure.
Stuff you, man.
Oh, come on. But, and so, and then a couple days later, he actually reached out because he needed a guitar player for the Preds game. Yep. And so I sent over my buddy, Sean, and it was great. And I was like, oh, I get to help someone. That's great. And then I was like, hey, we should grab coffee. I'd love to meet you. He was like, great. And so I grabbed coffee with him. Lovely gentleman, as you know. And we just had a great time. And then he was like, yeah, I'd love to have you on a gig sometime. I was like, great. That sounds awesome. So we leave. And I'm in my car and I'm like, I should probably look up this band to figure out if I even like the music, right?
Not damn country music.
Because I've got myself in a lot of trouble. It was actually, there's only been one time I've actually had to back out of a gig because I said yes before listening. And then I listened to it and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't play this music.
Probably don't see many country artists with pink hair, so you'll say.
I think so. You never know these days.
You never know, true.
And so I looked it up and I was like, the monthly followers and listeners, I was like in the millions. And I was like, who are these people? Like, what? And then I saw the Geronimo thing and I was like, oh my gosh, it's this band. Like, that's so cool. And then, we hung out a couple more times and then they asked me to do the Vegas gig. And I was like, that'll be...
How good was that, by the way?
Oh, so good. Literally a top core memory for the rest of my life. And my wife got to be there because y'all are so kind. And I asked if she could come and George was like, oh, of course. Your wife again, because she's awesome. She's awesome. She's way better than I am. But I don't deserve her, but I got her. No takesies, backsies. I always tell her that. But I had a really crazy epiphany one day. I was in my car after the Vegas thing had been planned, and I was starting to learn the songs. And I had low-key already learned the songs before he asked me to play the gig. But
I was ready.
I loved
preparation,
it,
dude.
Yeah.
Preparation.
It's also a very unique position, I think, where you play for an artist that you love everything they do. Like I was just listening to music because I love it. And I didn't realize how good all the songs were until I learned who Shepherd was. I knew who the Geronimo people were, but I didn't know who Shepherd was. Yep. And I was in my car and I had the epiphany that when I first moved to LA, which is 2014, I was like, cool, I'm here. I made it to LA, whatever that means. Now what do I do, right? Like, I got to make money. How do I fulfill my dream or whatever, like why I moved here. And so I was playing the dumb game of like, who would I want to play for? Who would I want to tour with? And it seemed dumb to be like, I'd want to play with Aerosmith, or, I'd want to play for Genesis, or, like bands that already have drummers that they've been, AC/DC or whatever. So I was like, that's stupid. I can't say that. And so literally I remember Geronimo coming on the radio and being like, honestly, I would love to play for this band.
Are you kidding?
10 years ago. And I met y'all, you beautiful people. The reason why I'm sitting here talking to you right now, I met them through a one-off random ad in Nashville after I moved, being like, honestly, I'm getting married. Like, it's after a season that I actually gave up drumming for about 6 months and taught. Like, this past year.
You gave up drumming.
Yeah. I taught
minute.
high school theology for 6 months.
Dude.
But so, and this is after all that. And I'm just like, that's so random, but so awesome. And to me, I look at things like that and I'm going off on a mild tangent, but I look at things like that and I look at where we are today. And I can't believe in randomism, if that's even a word.
It is. It sounded so official that I was like, oh, that's going in my newsletter.
But like, I can't believe in that, because if it's all random and if it all is just complete chaos, then how did I meet someone from 10 years ago that I wanted to meet? And I had given up on that because I'd forgot that y'all were from Australia. But like, I remember looking it up that day and being like, ooh, they're in Australia. Like, I'm probably not going to find myself there anytime soon. So like, that's probably a random dream.
Yeah.
But it came true. And like, so I look at that and I look at the fact that I'm alive, you're alive. I have a roof over my head. I've never been, I don't think I've ever died. I've never been homeless. I've never had to skip a meal, which I know a lot of people can't say. So I count myself very fortunate, very blessed. But I see that, and I see that I take that information. I take the fact that I've been alive for 37 years without anything catastrophic happening, and the fact that I'm okay today. Even if I lost my house, I'd be okay today because I'm alive. So why is tomorrow any different? Why is today any different? Why, you know what I mean? And I'm sure people could find holes in that. But
if you're going to search for holes, then you've got bigger issues.
Right.
Like,
right.
I feel like we're overcomplicating life because we are looking for the holes rather than if we simplified the outcomes we're looking for, or the ability to get to the outcomes, the more likely we will do what is required to do that, right? To be happy, it's like to enjoy the moment and to express gratitude. Okay, well, that's two things I've mentioned.
Right.
Let's keep that simple rather than going, oh, I can't be happy because of this, and all right, well, you're definitely not going to try and be happy because you've got to overcome fucking 10 things you just listed off.
Right. Well, and in that, I mean, aren't we always supposed to learn from history? We don't learn from history in our own self-happiness, because we look at all the times we've been happy and we're like, oh, well, I can't be happy now though. Like, why not? Like, there were horrible things happening, I'm sure, in your life when you were the happiest. You just have blocked those things out because
focus, man.
And hindsight, you look back and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like, okay, then why did I spend all that time worrying about it?
It's, you think, I don't know whether it's happened in your life, but whenever a funeral happens,
sure, people
will go, I'm going to do things differently. Or a funeral, or like you have a health scare yourself.
Right.
And so I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to start going to the gym, or I'm not going to work 20-hour days. I'm going to start living my life. I've been guilty of saying that so many times. Yep. Or like you catch up with your buddies at a wedding or a funeral. It's like, we need to do this more often, man. How good is it hanging out? 3 years pass and you still haven't done anything about it. And to me, it's like the focus. Like, if you can simplify your life, once again, going back to those buckets or those values, identify things that fulfill those values. You know, I got a bucket list of shit that literally on my notes on my phone, but then I also know the people who are the most important to me, and I have reminders in my phone to call them, to text them, because some people are like, you have to set a reminder to that. I'm like, well, yeah, because life has a lot of things going on. And
A lot.
I don't want 2 years to pass before talking to you because I value our
Right.
conversations, or I want to get through my bucket list because that's what life is. And
Wow, that's good.
people overcomplicate it because it's easier to do. Like you're putting space between the outcome that you want and where you are now. If you can remove the space, there's a greater likelihood that you're going to do what you need to do.
Wow, it's the procrastinating thing, right? Like
You just
one day
summarized
I
my
will.
whole thing with one word.
I'm so excited about this. You're absolutely right. It's that whole like saying of like there's no time like the present kind of thing. It's right. We can dream all we want, but when are you going to do it?
Why'd you quit drumming
Um,
or sabbatical, whatever?
yeah. It was really crazy, but I realized that I had spent my entire life being a drummer, and that was my identity, and I wanted to get away from that. And so literally an opportunity presented itself. So I teach a drum line at a private Christian school in Brentwood, which is like a suburb for those of you who don't live in Nashville. But I've been substitute teaching there. I actually have a degree in music education. So I love teaching.
Yep.
I love drumming too, obviously. So that's kind of the hard.
Yeah.
So I do love teaching, and I've been substitute teaching there at this school for about, I guess, 2.5 years now. And last year, an opportunity actually presented itself where I randomly subbed it's a Christian school, so I randomly subbed in a theology class.
What's theology?
Theology is like the study of like Christianity.
Okay.
And
cool.
like, so like it essentially an easier word for it is I taught Bible.
Perfect.
Right.
All right.
It's better. It's
that didn't go over my head. That one landed. The eagle has landed.
But I remember subbing in this class one time and being like, I get to talk about the Bible with kids, and it's just something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I became a believer about 5.5 years ago, which is like a whole nother story. And
what was your moment like?
My moment was my entire life. I was what people call an agnostic, which means like I believe something is out there. And I deeply attributed everything to karma and to the universe. And so I knew that like back then I knew that coincidence wasn't a thing. And I just kept seeing how I would meet somebody and then that would turn into like a really cool relationship or a really cool opportunity. Because I was very opportunistic in my younger years of just like, work was my identity,
yep.
right? Drumming was my identity. So I understood that like if I stayed home, nothing happened. But if I went out and I met people were put in my life and it like parlayed into something way cooler. So like always be doing something, never be stagnant, right? Like, and so my wife actually, when I met her, it was on a tour in Atlanta, and I was playing for a pop artist, and we were opening for Betty Who at the time, who was an Australian. My wife and I hit it off, and when she was leaving to go back to Nashville, and I was getting ready to go back to go to the next city, she told me, she goes, I don't date long distance. The next person I date, I'm going to marry, and they have to believe what I believe, which is Christianity. And when I first saw her, I was like, if that girl will let me, I'm going to marry her, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, like the next person you date, you're going to marry, like sign me up, like yes. And then I told her, I was like, I can always move. Like I'm not tied to LA because
Do what I want.
It's expensive and I do what I want. And then I was like, I'm open to hearing about Christianity. Like no one's ever really talked to me about it before. And so we dated long distance for like 10 months. I was in LA, she was in Nashville. We'd see each other, we'd visit each other every other month. So like she'd go to LA for 1 month. I'd come to Nashville for the next month. And then we just talk on the phone for like 4 hours a day. And we really got to know each other, which is really cool. So I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely want to marry this girl. And I got that job opportunity to move to Nashville and play for the country artist. And she called me one night and she goes, you're going to move to Nashville. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, if you move to Nashville, we're probably going to get married. And I was like, hopefully. Like, the reason why I'm moving, like I'm leaving my friends, any career opportunities I had in LA, I'm leaving that. And she goes, well, I can't marry you if you're not a Christian. And I was like, what? Like, how? This is, so I didn't take it very well. Because I was like, well, that means your love is conditional. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm committing to you. I'm changing my life for you. All that, moving to a new city. And she goes, obviously I still love you, and my love's not conditional. She goes, but please tell me you'll try. And I was like, of course, I told you from the beginning I would try. Like I would hear this out, this whole God thing. And so then on Christmas Eve of 2018, she sent me this sermon by this guy named Tim Keller. And she was just like, someone shared this with me and I think it would really help. Please just tell me you'll give it a listen. And I was like, of course I'll give it a listen. And so I listened to it it was Christmas Eve. I didn't have any work going on the next day, which was very rare. And when I lived in LA, I didn't go home for Christmas because I worked at a theme park and tickets were astronomical to fly home to Maine. And also if I worked on a bank holiday, I would get double pay. So I'd make like $1,000 in a day. And I was like, I'm not going to pay $1,200 to fly home. I'm going to stay here and, whatever. But I didn't have a gig that day, Christmas. And so I listened to it and it just made a ton of sense to me. And God's relation to the universe made a ton of sense to me. It was the idea that, yes, I love astronomy and I love studying that stuff. And it was the idea that like, yes, the universe still exists, right? Like there are galaxies. If you see that picture, there's a picture floating around somewhere of like, it looks like stars in the nighttime, but they're all galaxies. And it's like, that's insane to think about. And they, scientists have studied and through math and things that I will never understand, they've figured out that space is constantly expanding. Like that's insane. Like what? And the fact that, we are floating in space and asteroids fly by us every day that could kill us and they don't, right? Like that's insane to me. And it wasn't until I had this explained to me that yes, that all exists and like gravity exists and all that. Someone made it. And what spoke to me was that like God made that. And which if we talk about like Big Bang stuff, I'm not trying to go down this rabbit hole, but like, and that's a religion too, right? Like something created.
Belief bigger than ourselves, right?
100%. And it's something that we will never know. Because you can't. Like we can't go back that far in history to read about it. And then this preacher talked about Jesus, and he said that Russians had gone into space. The first Russian, I forget his name, Igor Grigoriev or something, first Russian to ever go into space, and they said I'm forgetting my words right now. The atheists. They're an atheist country, right? They went through space and they released an official statement saying, we have been through the heavens and we didn't see a white man with a long white beard, so we can prove that God isn't real. And C.S. Lewis came out with a letter in response. And he goes, God isn't a upstairs neighbor that we can like walk upstairs and ask for like a cup of sugar. He created us. And so he goes, instead of thinking about it like that, think about it more like Shakespeare and Hamlet. And he goes, Hamlet doesn't look up and see Shakespeare, like the character of Hamlet, right? Doesn't look up and see Shakespeare like hanging out in the rafters, like watching the play. No, the only way that Shakespeare can ever make himself known to Hamlet is if he writes himself into the play Hamlet. Yeah. And then Hamlet will know who Shakespeare is. And that's what I believe God did with Jesus. And something that really spoke to me was I was a huge worrier. I would lose sleep so often because I was anxious because I don't do well living paycheck to paycheck. And I've done that my whole life. Yeah. But I mean, some people love it. Some people thrive, but I don't. And I heard there's a Bible verse that Jesus, a teaching, he was saying, don't worry about tomorrow. And essentially, like in a nutshell, like we have enough to worry about today. But also worrying won't add a single day to your life. And I think about that so much of all the times that I've stayed up at night worrying about X, Y, or Z. My worry doesn't help the situation. In fact, it makes it worse because I'm a very unpleasant person when I'm anxious, right? And like, and I always that is the biggest regret I have in my life is anytime I've ever worried, because I look back and it worked out. Maybe it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but it worked out, and in fact, it made me a better person. And another thing was, and I love this. It was. This in this sermon Tim Keller talked about, he goes, if you don't believe that there's a plan for you, that there is a plan for specifically you, and that you're doing it all on your own, that you're the one making your own destiny, he goes, then you're going to be bitter because you're going to see people who succeeded over you and you're going to say, why them, not me? You're going to be destitute and self-loathing because you will fail, because we will all fail at one point, and I have failed so many times. And so you're going to attribute your lack of success to the fact that you failed, or you're going to be anxious and a hot mess because you don't know what's coming down the pipe. And in my situation, it was just all three of those just revolving. Self-loathing every time I messed up, jealousy for people who were doing what I could do and sometimes not as well as I could do it. And I would just feel, jealousy and loathing towards them. And then just anxiousness and so the second that I understood that for myself, and had the realization that I'm here and I'm, through all the crap that I've been through and all the crap that we've been through on our own, it's made us a better person. It's made us better people, and it's made us more complete people. And so how can I, if I've seen all this bad stuff make me better, how can I not believe that there's a plan? That there's a plan for me? And I keep backing away from the gate. I want to make sure I'm not like...
No, it's interesting. I look at it like is zooming in and zooming out, like, and I guess in correlation with like even motivation, for example, it's like when you, what would an example be? You might see someone who's living your ideal life, and you're very, either some people choose to be beaten down by that and pity, or other people get motivated to go, oh, if I work a little bit harder, I can achieve that. And that's for me when you like zoom out and look at the big picture of what's happening for you, and it's that life's happening for us, not to us. No, hold on, which way? For us, not to us. Like there is a plan.
Oh, I
and
like that.
When we think it's happening to us, we're very reactive. Like rather
very
than
true.
thinking about like what's the lesson that I need to learn.
Yes.
Coming back to reflection, which we spoke about in the beginning.
Yeah.
If you're in a bad position in life, you don't even need to look outside yourself. Like, what is the next course I need to take? Where do I need to invest money? Who do I need to meet? It's just like, well, for me, for example, or for you, you've got 37 years, I've got 33 years worth of life experience that I could reflect upon. I could list out a number of key life experiences, both good and both bad.
Sure.
And I could go back into them. What happened then? What was I responsible for?
Sure.
What do I need to take responsibility for?
Sure.
And how did that influence the outcomes? because from that we gain self-awareness, we
Yep.
gain newfound insights that can help us moving forward.
Yes.
But people never want to use that, right? Like
Right.
the plan, to your point, that's been happening has happened for a reason, and it's got a bucket load of lessons that many of us, because we're too busy, life's happening very quickly, we don't stop to just go, stop. What do I need?
Right. Well, and isn't it when you were saying that, because I don't think I could have ever said that more eloquently. So great job. But like, it all boils down to, in my mind, it all boils down to accountability.
100%.
And we make choices every day. Do we want to be held accountable for our actions? And a lot of people, and again, hopefully I'm not offending. I don't really care.
Just go.
Yeah. A lot of people who have that victim mentality is, like you're saying, life is happening to them. They're not taking ownership for what they've done. And yeah, like crazy things happen, and sometimes you won't know for years why they're happening.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is you can take ownership for, like you said, your own part in it, and choose to make that a learning point to be better moving forward. One of my favorite stories was, do you guys follow baseball at all? Probably not.
Like, not really. I'm
Yeah.
more into cricket, but
I hear that.
like I've watched a few games.
Yeah.
So,
So there's a team called the Oakland A's.
okay.
They're in Oakland. We're going to be in Oakland.
Sweet.
Come see us in Oakland.
Come see us in Oakland. Get your tickets.
Get your tickets.
And your hot dogs.
So the general manager for the Oakland A's, this guy named Billy Bean.
Billy
crazy
Bean.
name, right?
That is
Crazy.
a wicked
Good old
name.
William Bean. Willie Bean.
Willie
But so he was just he was slated to be one of the best baseball players of all time, and went through high school just being the best, being scouted by like major league teams. He turned down a full ride to go to Stanford University to play baseball. He turned that down to sign a major league contract to play baseball when he was 18, right? And he said he remembers he was in the minor leagues and he struck out for the first time ever. Like, it was the first time he hadn't experienced success. And he got so mad that he had in that like farm team, like lower level, kind of like what the Nashville Sounds are.
Yeah.
They were using metal bats instead of wood bats. And he was so mad that he took his bat and he slammed it against the corner of a wall so many times that he bent the bat. And then he was so stubborn that he went up the next at bat with that bent bat. And obviously, what do you think happened? Struck out. And he sent him into a spiral, and he never recovered. And he's now the general manager and one of the owners for the Oakland A's, but he never made it big in baseball.
What?
Because when he faced adversity, he didn't know what to do with it. And so it destroyed him. And so we face adversity and we learn from it. So like the more crap we go through in our lives, the stronger we become, right? Like,
And you can find controlled adversity as well. It's like why
Sure.
doing hard things is so powerful, because it teaches you in a safe environment, essentially, like in this curated space,
yeah,
how you're going to respond to it. Like you jump in a cold pool, or you lift heavy weight, or you get up and try and do a public speaking set, or whatever it is, like your brain goes into survival mode.
right? Like
and it's
fight or
like,
flight
yeah.
kind of.
And are you going to react, or are you going to learn how to manage your emotions? Are you going to be able to focus on the outcome and still navigate for it? Because life is going to serve you up some shit at some point. And so if you don't train for that, you're not going to respond well. And
Wow.
if you use William Bean as an example, like when
Yeah.
adversity comes, do you want to be able to step up to it, or do you want to be affected by it? And
Right.
I can probably imagine a lot of people listening don't want to be impacted in a negative way about it. Then
Right.
okay, start fucking training for it.
Right. Yes.
Do
Put
hard
yourself
things.
in situations.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I think that might be the title of the podcast. Do hard things.
Yeah, baby.
That's man. I love that. It's, I've thought about that a lot with the cold plunge because I'm trying to get better at it. And it's the idea of right? It's a shock to the system first, which is also so good for you, but like it's a shock to your system at first. But then how can you sit in it and be like, accept it for what it is? It's cold.
Surrendering, man.
It's not going to kill you, right? Like maybe different if you were, on the Titanic and you're in the ocean. You're like, I might die.
Yeah.
Like, I'm probably going to die. Like
all you need to do when it gets uncomfortable is get out. And then it's like you push your threshold.
Wow.
If you the way I look at it is like people look at me, for example, right? When I did the 30 marathons in 30 days,
sure,
people go, that's not possible. I'm like, fair, maybe from the couch that you're sitting on. However, but like it's all relative, right? Like people's thresholds in response to adversity is very different. I've trained since I've been active my whole life.
Right.
And I've done a lot of physical challenges and I understand how far I can push or I don't actually, but I believe in my ability in certain things. So when I set a goal, it's like, I know I'm going to finish that. There's no doubt in my mind. However, if I were to set a goal, if I were to set the goal to do 30 marathons in 30 days 10 years ago, that would have been mind-blowing. But over time, I've continuously pushed what I believe to be possible. And sometimes there's been failure, there's been injuries, there's been setbacks, but I've kept showing up and stepping up and pushing it. And that's all the ice bath is as well. It's like you jump in, you have that initial shock, you jump out.
Right.
The next day, I'm going to try and sit in there for 15 seconds. And then you just keep doing it and you prove to yourself, man, I can do so much more. Like now I'm sitting in for 90 seconds. Like 2 months ago, I couldn't do it at all.
Wow.
And then this newfound belief, and you transfer that into other areas of your life because you start challenging what you think to be possible. It's like if you thought the ice bath was impossible and now you're doing it, what other bullshit beliefs do you have that you push through?
Well, and I mean, going right back to like learning from our history, like our own history, right? I thought this was impossible and now I'm doing it. So, I mean, exactly what you said. I love that so much.
Johnny, we could talk for hours.
We could.
Too. Where can people find you on socials? And I do want to have you back on because there's still so many questions I have to ask.
Okay, so socials, you can find me on, first of all, really quick, funny story. I'm old. And
no, you're not.
And I remember these dang kids say these things that I don't understand. And I remember the first time someone asked me for my socials, I was like, I'm not giving you my social security number. Like, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do that.
Can you give me that yours?
Yes. No, so socials, Instagram, you can find me at Butter Drums. Last name is Butterworth, drums, obviously. Facebook, Jon Butterworth, Jon, not John, because I'm a Jonathan. And I actually have kind of a fun, like, little YouTube thing that I have not committed to, but I started a little bit back a couple of years ago over COVID, called Tips, Tricks, and Takeaways. And what I do is I'm a huge gear nerd, and so I review things, all drum things. I teach people like how to tune drums, but I also like a lot with Ableton because Ableton's like my thing. Yep. For those of you who don't know, that's like a program that you run like live tracks for bands. So I just like, it's just a fun little, and I need to do it more, but
hell yeah.
YouTube, tips, tricks, and takeaways. And I don't do TikTok because I'm old. I had it when it first came out and I was posting on it. And then one day my password didn't work. And so I like reset my password and I got back in my account and all my videos were gone. And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm not
starting over.
Too much. That's fair.
But yeah. So
dude, for everyone listening along, I've got Johnny's socials, not his social security number. You miss out there in the show notes, so you can click on and give him a follow. Mate, I really appreciate you coming on and getting to know you a little bit better. There's still so many questions that we'll be able to find out over on the next tour as well. We're for like another 4 or 5 weeks or something.
I'm excited.
So fun,
dude. I'm just honored to know you, and I'm honored to be on this. Like, very much. This is a highlight of my summer so far. So,
dude,
thank you so much.
We've only just kicked into summer now. But some key takeaways for me is like the one that I highlighted at the beginning. We always have something to accomplish, something to celebrate and be thankful for, and something to learn. The ability for you to separate yourself from what you thought your identity was to expand and grow into so much more than just being a drummer, I think is something that a lot of our listeners could take away and definitely relate to as well. So, dude, thank you.
Thank you, Lachie.
Cheers.
Cheers.